The Ethereum protocol is moving from proof of work to proof of stake. It's just days away. Ethereum co-founder Anthony Diorio is saying there will be a lot of noise as people try to find ways to capitalize on the situation. We'll find out more because joining us now is Anthony Diorio. He's the CEO and founder of Jax and Decentral. Hello there. Good morning, Anthony, a fellow Canadian. And,
he's wearing black. Wearing black in the morning.
No, it's navy blue. I don't wear black.
Oh, navy blue. Okay.
Well, Anthony, you said that, people are going to take advantage of the situation that this merge will, have. Referring to, what do you mean by that, though? Like, how will people take advantage of the merge?
Well, I think you've got people on many different sides, as is always the case. And if we remember what happened back in the day with the DAO and the split between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, you had this very divisive immutability versus consensus debate that happened that led to the creation of Ethereum Classic. So you had a lot of people on that side trying to promote Ethereum Classic. You had a lot of people trying, and where it eventually went was, of course, I think Ethereum as the dominant winner out with that. But you have people that are in this debate of proof of work versus proof of stake, and you're going to get, I think, a number of people trying to push their agendas around the merge here and the different forks that are potentially going to be coming into play here. So I think you're going to see people using their agendas to try to push a certain fork in a certain direction, and you're going to have the main one. And I'm pretty confident with the way that this has played out and the support that the merge has had, that will be the successful side of things. But I think you're going to see a lot of people coming out of the woodwork and trying to do something around this major event that is happening right now in order for them to capitalize somehow and push an agenda or push a particular fork that comes out of this. So I just think that's something to be aware of, things that are going to come out that are going to be kind of on the auxiliary side of this space.
Justin Sun is a big proponent of this ETH proof of work chain. He wants to continue it on. He's buying tens of millions of dollars worth of ETH just ahead of the merge. What do you think will come of this proof of work ETH chain?
I really don't know. I think and I think that's a good example of what Justin Sun is kind of doing there. Is he's got a lot of I guess strength in the space, and I think there's quite a few people that still follow him, and you're going to get a lot of marketing around that side of things. But I just don't think at the end of the day that there's going to be enough support of that side of things with proof of work anymore, with the amount of time and energy that's been spent by the foundation and Ethereum as a whole, and getting on board all of the major players in the space to shift towards what people or most people are thinking is a better system, even though it does have similar potential centralization aspects that could come into play. I just, if I had to guess and if I had to bet on it, I think that it's going to be just too much of a strong, powerful push towards proof of stake that it's going to go by the wayside, the proof of work, but not before maybe people are able to do things to capitalize on that situation. And maybe that's something that Justin Sun is trying to do.
So Anthony, you were there in the early days, of course, and when the idea of Ethereum was being tossed around, and it was just a twinkle in everyone's eye. Did the thinking about proof of work versus proof of stake, did that discussion ever come up? Or proof of stake at the time, I guess, was relatively nascent, if you will, in the crypto world. But nonetheless, did that debate ever come up, and what happened?
Yeah, it was up from the very beginning. It was very clear with the difficulty bomb that was placed inside of Ethereum. And I'll explain a bit more about what that is, but the idea that to let the miners know that eventually there will be a shift over to proof of stake. So at some time in the future, there will be a move once it's ready to move over to proof of stake. That was very evident from the very beginning, and there was a difficulty bomb that was placed in the code that was set to explode, which would make mining very difficult using proof of work or using traditional mining systems. So that was a warning from the very beginning that this will happen. Now, the difficulty bomb has been kind of passed down the road year after year and didn't actually go off. But having that in the background of it will eventually happen when things, if this move doesn't, letting everybody know this will be happening, the proof of stake move. So know that, miners, that eventually down the road it will happen, and be prepared for it. Yes, that was a very important thing that was discussed since the very beginning, and was implemented, and now it's being carried out.
And along those lines, as things have unfolded with the merge, is it going the way you thought it would, or has it gotten better or worse? I mean, like, looking at it from somebody who's been there from that point.
So fascinated that it was there from the very beginning too.
Yeah, the idea that would happen was there from the beginning, and is it happening the way that I think things are going pretty smoothly? I think there's always going to be an issue with people not updating their nodes properly, and that's what this timeline between the 6th until I think it's the 13th is what they're saying the date is going to be now. But the only hiccup has been a few people that haven't updated their nodes, and there's going to be a little bit of challenge in them not having the right information there. But as everybody comes on board with the updating of the systems, like we at Jack's Liberty have updated all our systems, everything's ready to go for the merge. There's going to be the larger players, maybe like the Coinbases and the Krakens, are going to be, I think, stopping things for a bit, is my understanding, making sure things are working well, and then putting things back into play again. But so far, so good. It's been a long time in coming. There's been a lot of delays, but I think they've always taken the approach of caution over doing things fast. And I think that's one of the benefits of Ethereum. Their focus on decentralization first has always been something that I've come to appreciate and really respect. That first and foremost is decentralization, and making sure things are proper and things are ready to go. And if it takes longer, it takes longer. And that's just something that happens when you're dealing with these technologies and breakthrough technologies.
Anthony, I'm curious, do you still have a big stash of ETH, and what do you plan to do? Would you stake it?
I generally don't talk about my holdings. I do own ETH still. I'm not staking it. I've learned to stay away from some of the auxiliary complexities of certain things, that trying to take this and get interest on it and do the things that I've learned over time that these extra nuances and technical complications of things have consequences sometime, and it sometimes feels greedy to me to be thinking, how can I squeeze out a little bit more interest rates on these things and do something, and it comes back to bite me. So I've just learned over the years to focus on the stable long-term projects that have shown resilience over time. And I did that through lessons learned with trying to work in some new projects that might give you higher returns. But I have become a lot more conservative over the years, and I'm not involved in staking or becoming a validator. But however, we are working on hardware that's going to enable that to be very easy to do. So I'm invested in that side to build the technology to allow others to do those things, but no, not myself.
Well, it's interesting because last time we spoke, you said that you might be moving away from crypto, or at least pivoting a bit. But now I understand that you have a new project in Web3, and it's called Andiami. Maybe you could just tell us a bit about that. So, Andiami, sure. Tell us a bit about that, and why you decided to come back to crypto, if you will.
So over the last few years, wanting to focus outside of the crypto space on problem solving and building the leaders that are needed to solve some of the larger world problems that aren't necessarily crypto related is where I've been trying to put a lot of my attention into. But what I figured out, and due to a recognizing that there's a big problem in the crypto space right now that's not talked about too often, and I think it's important to understand that there's a massive centralization that is happening right now of infrastructure into cloud service providers that are centralizing node infrastructure. And what that is that nodes are like the lifeblood of these technologies. You've got mining, an incentive mechanism for people to secure the network, and that you have these nodes that anybody can run, and they're very important for the robustness of these systems. And what's happening is that this node infrastructure is being concentrated in the hands of a few large players that are now holding 90%, a very large percentage of infrastructure that people are relying on for Ethereum and other technologies. And it's equivalent to a cloud service provider like AWS. And in fact, AWS is one of the largest players. And people are relying on node infrastructure that's being centralized in the hands of cloud service providers. And I don't want to talk about some of the companies specifically, but there's like 2 or 3 players in the crypto space that have like 90 or 95% of the infrastructure, that you need to trust this third-party intermediary, institutional intermediary that is regulated, that has certain incentives and motivations to return profits to their shareholders. That is the antithesis of what the decentralized movement's about. So I built infrastructure for years. This infrastructure, I believe, needs to be decentralized in the hands of individuals. So our project is focused on decentralizing node infrastructure and making it super simple for anybody to run a node. And it involves hardware, it involves software, it involves creating a decentralized network of node sharing that will take us out of the problem of reliant on third-party trusted intermediaries, that when the government says you have to remove this address, you can't, you're a regulated body and you have to remove this address, and a company like Coinbase now has to make a decision. Are we going to abide by what the government is telling us there? Or are we going to threaten or risk being slashed by the Ethereum community? Because staking is putting money forward, and if you do something wrong, they can take that money from you. So like Coinbase is in a difficult situation, and as are others that are regulatorily having to be compliant. And it's becoming very centralized, and it's a big problem, and something that I felt what I built over the years can solve that problem. And that's why I'm more enthused to get back and delivering the product that we've been building for 10 years, and also being a leader in the space that's going to help to further decentralize these systems, because it is very risky when you have to be in the hands of a few trusted entities to make sure that your systems are running. And it's a conflict, and that conflict needs to be resolved.
Fascinating. You know, I feel like that's been a problem with Web2 from the get-go. You know, the internet was envisioned to be this decentralized internet where people would have access to information, and in the end, it became a very centralized place. And so Web3 certainly faces that danger. So if you're trying to combat it right now, it's a good battle to fight.
It's my theory on this is you can't have a user-controlled internet, which is what Web3 is promised to be, without the actual individual being and running their own server. If you are reliant on somebody else, you now have to trust them and their motivation. So our goal with Decentral has always been to empower people with the tools they need to be in control of their digital lives, their money, communication, and identity. And our goal is to get a hardware device into the home of everybody that can actually run a node very easily and simply, so that they can push their own transactions. They can actually connect directly with the protocols themselves and have all the blockchain data they need without having to rely on anybody else. So I've been enthused to continue on with that mission, but at the same time, I've started a foundation to build the next generation of leaders and problem solvers. So I'm kind of matching the two things that I'm doing together and that I want to be doing, and I figured out a way to do the things together of what I wanted to do, so that it's coming together nicely, and I'm super motivated with what I'm doing, and changing my perspective a bit on still being involved in the space.